Hi friends! So today in poetry we're going to be reviewing parts of a poem. We're going to be talking about how to identify those parts and then labeling those parts. And by doing this, it helps us a lot of times when we have to answer questions about poetry, and it helps us just to better understand the poem and to kind of organize it for ourselves. So let's start off with the first part of a poem, which is the title, which is also just the name of the poem and what it's called. So this one is called I Stuck My Finger Up My Nose. You actually just listened to this poem in your earlier lesson, and we talked about how it was a humorous poem because it was really funny and silly. So the first thing we do is we underline our title. We also do this using our unwrap strategy in reading. And that's, we underline the title so it stands out to us and kind of gives us a preview of what the story might be about. So I Stuck My Finger Up My Nose by Ken Nesbitt. Ken Nesbitt is the poet. He is the author of this poem. He's the one who wrote it. And we don't need to read the poem today because you just read it or you just listened to it in the earlier lesson. So we're just going to jump right into labeling it. So the next part of a poem is a line. Lines are a single row of words in a poem. So right here are single words in a row in a straight line of this poem. So at the beginning, I like to just number each line. So 1, here's my next row. 2, here's my next row of lines. 3, here's my next line. 4, here's my next line. 5, and then I'm going to go all the way down and just continue to label every single line in this poem. So 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So I have a total of 20 lines in this poem. And lines are important because if you're ever answering questions about a poem, it might tell you, refer back to line 10 or go back to line 3. And it might ask you a question about something in here. Or like in Unwrap, when you answer a question and you need to prove your answer, you can always go back and say, well, I found this answer in line 19. The next part of a poem is a stanza. A stanza is a group of lines in a poem that are separated from each other by a space. So if we know that these are our lines, they're grouped together and then a space separates them. So these first couple lines are grouped with that space right there. So I like to draw a little grouping symbol, and I'm going to put stanza 1. And then there's a space. Let's go to our next group. We see a group of lines here. Oh, there's another space, so these are grouped together. That's another stanza. So that's stanza number 2. Now I'm going to go to my next group of lines. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, and then here's a new space to separate them. So these are grouped together. That's stanza 3. And then here's another group of lines that are grouped together because here's the space that separates them. Stanza 4. And then the last one, a group of lines, and it's the end of the poem. So that's stanza 5. So we have 5 stanzas, and a lot of times if you just look at the poem as a whole, you can see all the spaces and you can kind of see the big groups of them. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas. Now the last one, we didn't really get to talk about this one too much last time, but these are called line breaks. Now all line breaks are kind of what they sound like. It's a break after the end of that line. So a line break is just the space between the stanzas. It's breaking up the lines. So where you see these stanzas, they're separated by the space. This space is called the line break. And an easy way to label line break is to draw a big rectangle that fills up that space. So there's 1, come to my next space, 2, come to my next space, 3, come to my next space, 4. I don't need to do a line break here because this is the end of the poem. And so line breaks are just the space that separate the stanzas. It's kind of a break after these groups of lines. So as a total, this poem has 20 lines. It has 20 lines, rows of words. It has 5 stanzas, groups of these lines, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4 line breaks. So that's how you label your poem. Now in your daily grade today, you're going to be looking at a poem and it's going to be asking you questions, and some of the questions might ask you about the parts of a poem. So be paying attention so you know how to answer them.